Hey guys, today let's talk about how to play the Space Marines Ironstorm Spearhead detachment competitively, and if you're a fan of Iron Hands, this video is definitely for you, so without further ado, let's dive right in. First, as always, about the strength. We are really incentivized here to build around vehicles, which Space Marines have a lot of, and a lot of them are very good. A very big percentage of our damage output options are actually vehicles in my top 5 videos, for example. Plus, now in 10th edition, vehicles are much more resilient than they were in, say, 9th or 8th. So here's another reason why you would want to build around them, especially considering that we are getting the hit or wound or damage reroll for our detachment rule, which is exactly what a low model count but high quality output models need. It completely changes the efficiency for the dreadnoughts and tanks. We also get probably the best suit of enhancements out of all the detachments we have seen so far in all of the codexes, because we pretty much want all 3, and the 4th one is a brilliant enhancement. It's just when you are buying so many, you probably don't have enough character slots and points to buy a 4th one. Discuss all of these in detail throughout this video, and especially in the synergy section, but pretty much 2 of them you never leave home without, and 3rd one you almost always want to have as well. We also have great stratagems. They mostly enhance the output, a little bit of the survivability, but not really. It's more of the how you can use your vehicle to its utmost potential. Like the 1 CP power of the machine spirit, where you can shoot back if your vehicle gets half killed. You essentially just get more mileage out of your vehicle, but it's not directly durability. But definitely a lot of output stratagems that you would want to use. Now the weaknesses, and for this detachment, which is probably one of the best, like top 2 most powerful detachments in the Space Marine Codex, or top 3 definitely, there are quite a lot of weaknesses, and they are mostly linked to the fact that we are playing a vehicle-heavy list, but not completely. For example, we are very susceptible to snipers or non-attacks like the Vortex of Doom or Doombolt the Thousand Suns have, because half of the efficiency of the list is in the enhancements that you give to your Tech Marines and other characters. Potentially 2 of the enhancements are Tech Marine specific, so you will have at least 2 in your army. Plus, you want them to heal your vehicles and also give them +1 to hit, because hitting on 2s with rerolls is much better than hitting on 3s with rerolls. So if your opponent has a way to get to your characters, they will do it, because those characters are a very big portion of your army's power. We don't also have the reactive movement stratagem like the Gladiators or Vanguard, making the list's movement phase pretty predictable. That we do have, thankfully, the fallback and charge capability through one of the enhancements, but not being able to move in your opponent's movement phase is something that a lot of Space Marine players are already used to through the Gladiators, Vanguard, or perhaps the Grey Knights. By nature, we are also susceptible to lists designed to do damage to vehicles and do well against something like Knights. So a lot of Malta, a lot of high AP, high damage stuff, and specific rerolls or maybe anti-vehicle rules. And we don't get almost any vehicle survivability help from the detachment itself. So apart from the Armor of Contempt, which we all have. You might say, well, there are infantry-specific rules as well, but I would say that there are much more things specifically designed to combat vehicles now, at least in the meta, than there are things that are designed to combat infantry. Again, by nature, we're also less mobile, as we cannot go through walls. It means that all moves we make will have to go around the walls. So even though the vehicle can be like an 8-inch move, so faster than an infantry unit, those extra 2 inches will not compensate in most cases you going around the wall. Now that we know the strength and weaknesses, let's talk about how to actually build and play this list. So you know where it should start, obviously. It is the dreadnoughts, because they were good without the buffs, and with these buffs from Tech Marines and also the stratagems and the rerolls, they're getting much better. And talking about building lists, if you want my help building your roster, check out the links in the description for my Patreon, where I provide all that personal assistance. So Redemptors are simply made to be in this list. I love the Redemptors, and I envy myself in the alternative universe where I'm playing Ironstorm with them, because those rerolls that you get for them as a multi-phase unit, so they both fight and shoot, so you'll be getting those rerolls in the fight phase, in the shooting phase, in the fight phase of your opponent, potentially when the are charging your wound when you're stuck in combat. Redemptor gets significantly better with the reroll to wound and potentially to hit if you're not targeting an oath target. Ballistus dreadnoughts are likewise great here just simply because they're very cheap and they provide the long-range shooting output for a very cheap price on a pretty reasonably durable platform, and rerolls to wound and damage are what you were lacking previously, because you have sometimes the rerolls to hit, but you're not getting rerolls to wound and damage, and their d6 plus 1 d6 damage guns and missiles really need that. Vindicators as well. We've talked a lot on this channel about how good they are, and being able to reroll that d6 damage sometimes is crucial. So in most cases you will be bypassing the hit roll unless you really didn't hit with anything, so there's no point to wait. Then perhaps maybe using that on the wound roll in some situations, but in most cases you will wait until the damage roll, because the further you are in that sequence, the more valuable the reroll is. Unless you just didn't get enough volume of wounds, where you might argue that you are better off just having another d6 damage instead of being able to increase the result on the d6. Gladiators are great here, as they are for all Space Marine lists, to be honest, especially the Reaper, because Lancer, he just gets an obnoxious amount of rerolls with his built-in rerolls and the rerolls from detachment, and that's great. Just another reason to take him. However, Reaper just shines differently in this detachment, and we'll discuss why in the synergy section. The Impulsors are also great because if you buff a transport with something like Mercy's weakness, for example, which makes the vehicle have sustained hits 1, and also 5s become critical hits. And as the vehicle will be equipped with the guns of the infantry inside through the firing deck rule, and you have something like Hellblasters inside, those guns will also get the benefit, which will make them significantly better, and also any kind of aura that you have running around with your Tech Marines. Storm Ravens, we've discussed them a lot recently, and they aren't bad here as well. They are much better here than they are in pretty much any other detachment, because rerolls do help their shooting a lot, and they have a lot of shooting, which really wants the rerolls. You can also get a dreadnought up the board, which we like dreadnoughts in this detachment, and you can also buff it with 1 CP Ancient Fury for just extra survivability. That doesn't have the save modification unfortunately anymore, but it does buff your move, your toughness to 11, which will help against a lot of your anti-tank shooting that is strength 10, and also leadership and objective control, and of course the +1 to hit. And afterwards you can explode that dreadnought automatically with Vengeful Animus for just 1 command point. So if you want to have a crazy Brutalis just throwing its life on the line through the Storm Ravens delivery option, that might be a good option. So just so we don't have to go through all of the vehicles in the Space Marine Codex, all in all, the vehicles that were good, they become excellent here. The vehicles that were playable, they become good, and so on. So if something was okay, you should think about maybe trying this in here. Like for example, the Storm Speeders, they are much better here than they are anywhere else. Plus the +1 to wound buff, for example, could be crucial for something like Redemptors. In addition to vehicles that will be doing all the heavy lifting and also providing us with the durability, we also want to have obviously something lighter, like scouts to do home objective duty and baiting out our opponents' reactions. Also the infiltrators for the same reason, and also protecting us from dip strike, because what we don't want is to, because we have a very low model count, we're not that good at just covering the board in units, so we want to have at least some way to protect our dreadnoughts from easy dip strikes into our backline. You need 2 or 3 Tech Marines, as we discussed, because you need all the enhancements. Lieutenant with a combi weapon wouldn't hurt as well, because an extra reroll of 1 to wound is great, especially when you have rerolls already, so you can reroll 1/1, and then you can reroll another wound roll, and so on. And also just a good unit, low up unit that can also be helpful for fulfilling secondaries, for example, or just keeping your home objective safe. And if you're not against running non-Iron Hands lists, I'd really recommend taking a long, hard look at Guilliman, because he is very good at just protecting your dreadnoughts with his melee. Also, you are gonna get ability to double dip into stratagems like Armor of Contempt or your Oath of Moment, which both of these are very good for your vehicles. So think about bringing him if you want to run Ultramarines Ironstorm. Calidus is a must-have here, quite obvious. I'm not going to go through why. I'm sure you understand that yourself. So now let's go through all of the enhancements real quick. So the Tech Marine enhancement, the Target Augury Web, which gives Adeptus Astartes vehicles within 6 of the Tech Marine lethal hits. So if you combine that with the Gladiator Reaper, which just has a lot of shots, and then you can have Mercy's weakness for sustained hits, or just shoot at infantry, which the Reaper does have sustained hits too inbuilt against. You can have just a wall of lead traveling in your opponent's direction, and with lethal hits you will actually be able to do quite a lot of damage to any even high toughness target, especially if you put Oath on it and you can fish for 6s or 5s. Lethal hits are also great for your Redemptors as well, because their plasma really wants to get the wound through, as it's a damage 3, so high damage gun, high volume gun as well, high AP gun, a good range, and the only thing that it's lacking is the actual wounding capability with the medium strength, so allowing you to have lethal hits and also rerolls of 1s for lieutenant, or just reroll from your detachment is gonna help you exactly with that. Your other Tech Marine is carrying the Adept of the Omnissiah enhancement, so another Tech Marine specific one. That one just allows you once per battle round to, when you fail a saving throw, to ignore 1 damage. You modify the damage to 0, so against something like Melta, it won't help that much because it will not affect the Melta part of the damage, but against anything else like D6+6 laser or something, that is just perfect to keep your vehicles alive, and especially keep this guy, this enhancement, close to your wounded vehicles, because your opponents, noticing that you are healing your stuff, will be trying to finish off units. So if they don't manage to finish off a dreadnought, make sure that this guy is close to that dreadnought. And lastly, the Master of the Machine War enhancement. This doesn't have to go on the enhancement, it can go onto any character. However, Tech Marine is still a good option for that, or if you want, you can put that onto Lieutenant like I do usually, and that allows you to shoot even after you fall back and advance, and that is extremely important. I would say this one is probably just as important as the lethal hits one, if not more, because it allows your vehicles to have that extra level of mobility, especially the fallback and shoot is so important for the dreadnoughts, as you don't want them to be stuck in combat without being able to disconnect and at least do the shooting. Most importantly, Master Machine War allows us to stage the dreadnoughts better behind ruins without sacrificing the shooting, so we can advance as much as possible and then get the charge off in the next turn. And for things like Vindicator, for example, being able to get extra d6 to its movement can be the difference between getting line of sight into something it wants to shoot or getting range into something that it wants to shoot or not. Lastly, the roster example. So here is what I think you may want to do with your Ironstorm list. This is vanilla, so it doesn't have Guilliman or Ironfather Fayers or something like that, which I don't think you really need Ironfather, to be honest, even if you're playing just pure Iron Hands, because you're not getting much efficiency from him because you cannot give an enhancement to him. His biggest buff is 5-up Film Pain to infantry units, so I'm not sure you would want to use him. So anyways, here is the Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, who has the Master of the Machine War enhancement, and 2 Tech Marines with 2 subsequent enhancements, Target Augury Web and Adept of the Omnissiah, as we discussed. Also, we have a squad of Infiltrators to protect us from Dip Strike, a squad of Scouts to do scout things, 2 Ballistus Dreadnoughts, 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, 3 Vindicators, and a Calidus Assassin. So we have the 4 support units, so Infiltrator, Scout, Calidus, and Lieutenant, 2 also supporting Tech Marine, but they're not there to do secondaries and stuff. They're there just to stand near the dreadnoughts and help them. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 vehicles to do everything else. So 3 of them are melee capable, and 5 of them are just purely shooting. You may want to change that ratio somewhat if you want, because just having only 3 melee capable dreadnoughts might be problematic if you are playing against someone who has a lot of melee, but you can just stay as far away as possible from them in the second turn as they are closing in, and just shoot as much as possible, killing as much as possible of their army, and then going in for the finishing blow. And as always, it's 2000 points on the nose. Let me know what you think about the Ironstorm. Do you use it? Which vehicles do you like to have in that list? Because I personally not sure that this combination I have is the most optimal one, so I would like to discuss that in the comments with you if you like. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.